Spider-Man is and always will be one of my favorite superheroes. From Tobey Maguire's performance as the first on-screen web-slinger of my time to the cartoons that were on Fox as a kid. Even the older games like Spider-Man Web of Shadows, which was a lot of fun, and the tie-in game for The Amazing Spider-Man that came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Those two games were a lot of fun, especially if you were a webhead. If you want to go back and play the 360 or PlayStation 3 versions, I highly recommend them. However, when Sony announced a Spider-Man game was coming to the PlayStation 4 at E3 2016, my hype levels went off the charts. You could tell from that very first trailer that Insomniac Games was not going to screw this up, and that fans of Spider-Man would finally get the game that they had always really wanted. Now, I play a lot of RPGs, as you all know, because I want to step into a world that's ripe for exploring. Sometimes I want to take my characters through a crafted story with a party of adventurers. Sometimes I want to build a character up with certain powers and abilities exactly how I want them. All those reasons are great reasons. But sometimes I just want to step into the role of a beloved character and experience what they experience, see the world the way they see the world, and fight their battles and truly become that character. Marvel's Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4, and even more so the Remastered edition on PlayStation 5, allows you to do just that, become Spider-Man. Now, this game came out in 2018, and there's already been a sequel starring Miles Morales, so I'm not going to avoid showing you snippets of gameplay and cutscenes that I would have avoided if I were reviewing this game when it first came out in 2018. Yeah, Miles is here, and I love him, and I love the way that they introduced him. In fact, the way they introduce all of the main characters in the game is such a fresh take on Spider-Man storytelling. We have all experienced Peter Parker's origin story multiple times now. We know with great power comes great responsibility. And being introduced to a more mature and experienced Spider-Man honestly makes him a little bit more believable. Peter Parker has already suited up and dealt with Rhino, Shocker, Vulture, and he's finally on the cusp of taking down the Kingpin himself, Wilson Fisk. Now, everybody has different reasons for loving Spider-Man. And for me, it's the fact that Peter Parker is just a normal guy trying to make it through life while keeping a secret identity. Recently, I was asked what fictional character I would love to hang out with and why. And I said it was Peter Parker, so I could counsel him on how to avoid messing up his relationship with Mary Jane. I was in the middle of my Spider-Man Remastered playthrough when I was asked that question, and that was the first thing that popped into my mind. These two characters really need to learn how to communicate. I want to see them make it, not fight. And honestly, it's all about the relationships. We have Peter's relationship with Aunt May, who actually has a much more important part of the plot than most uses of May Parker that I've experienced. And then we have Spider-Man's relationship with Yuri Watanabe, the police captain that actually has Spider-Man's phone number. This is an established Peter Parker with friends, contacts, colleagues, and a place in the city, whether people actually like the web slinger or not. Captain Watanabe and Spider-Man's relationship deepens further in the City That Doesn't Sleep DLC, which is basically an entire secondary campaign. And when you play them one after the next, it develops that relationship deeper with old friends, enemies, and even a new ally. Now, I will say the Spider-Man Remastered version that comes out, or if you buy the Game of the Year version with everything, all of the DLC, it is the best package imaginable. If you have a PlayStation 5, I highly recommend you get the Miles Morales disc with the Spider-Man Remastered content. There's just so much to do. And you know what? All of these relationships really are my favorite part of the entire experience. In the first few minutes of the game, you're given the opportunity to control Spider-Man. And immediately you learn that Insomniac absolutely nailed web slinging in the game. In a GDC talk from 2019, Insomniac Games' Doug Sheehan said that their goal was to make the game play like a superhero movie feels. And as someone who has loved Spider-Man since the Tobey Maguire days, they nailed it. Swinging through the city, isn't a completely passive experience, and it can be difficult to master, but it's easy to learn, and even a beginner level player or someone who isn't too interested in something in depth can enjoy being Spider-Man. Movement around the city translates beautifully into combat through Spider-Man's super reflexes, spider sense, and the inclusion of some really awesome gadgets that go just above and beyond your typical web shooters. Even on the PlayStation 5 with its extremely quick, and I mean extremely quick, fast travel system, I almost always defaulted to swinging around the city instead of fast traveling. Hearing the excellent score and listening to the sounds of the city really made me feel like I was Spider-Man. I asked on Twitter if Insomniac's Spider-Man was an action RPG, and the response that I got is actually probably the most accurate. It's a Spider-Man simulator. The way the movement and combat feels aims to help you play like a superhero movie feels. But how does that actually translate into the gameplay and what you do? Insomniac's Spider-Man is filled with lots of things to do, and while it might seem repetitive at times, I never really got bored doing all the side quests and side content, finding backpacks or achieving certain objectives so I could unlock and upgrade Spider-Man's powers. The game does an excellent job of ramping up the difficulty as you progress through the story, so it's imperative that you're upgrading gadgets and suit powers to deal with some of the more complicated enemies that you'll run into. You get upgrade tokens of various types by completing side missions, discovering items hidden in the world, and completing these arena-style challenges with certain parameters met. So for example, if you do one of Wilson Fisk's construction sites, you will get some tokens just by completing it. However, if you do extra things by swing kicking 20 enemies or using a certain gadget so many times, you get even more tokens. By the time you finish the campaign, side quests, and all the DLC, your Spider-Man is very, very talented. So if you want to play on easy and just experience the story and become Spider-Man and not have too much trouble with it, or if you want to play on some of the higher difficulties and really master the combat, there is something here for you and an amazing story wrapped around. I wasn't very familiar with a lot of the characters beyond Rhino and Vulture and Shocker, so getting to know who Wilson Fisk is just a little bit more, or learning about Mr. Negative, was really, really interesting. And in the City That Never Sleeps DLC, I really enjoyed the Mafia take on everything, and the fact that there's an active mafia and there is all that kind of stuff still going on in New York City. Oh man, I wish they would remaster the old Godfather games. That'd be so cool. It'll never happen though. But yeah, Spider-Man Remastered is a banger. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, if you go and you pick up that package that has the Miles Morales story campaign and the Spider-Man Remastered content for what, $69, $79? It's $79. You have a lot of content and you have a lot of Spider-Man to beat. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you hanging out, learning a little bit more about why I love Spider-Man. Let me know down in the comments below, what's your favorite thing about Spider-Man? What's your favorite Spider-Man movie, game, cartoon, comic? What do you love about Spider-Man? Let me know down in the comments below and let's have a conversation about it. Have you played this Spider-Man game, whether it was on the PS4 or the PS5? Let's talk about it. I want to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you again next time.